as we had mentioned in the media advisory yesterday, is really to allow folks with media about 20-30 minutes with the commissioner. We are getting a high volume of requests, so we just wanted to offer this as an opportunity for everyone to be able to have questions answered and to be able to speak with the commissioner in like a block time. So the few things that the commissioner will go over, talk about the city council budget, the vote, her proposed amendments, and how this fits into this larger context of what she believes is necessary for police reform and accountability. And so just a few housekeeping things before we start. Everyone who's entered is on mute, so please remain muted until I call on you if you have a question. We unfortunately don't have a raise hand function, so how it's going to work is after the commissioner gives her remarks and offers the proposed amendments that she will be bringing to council today, we'll open it to the floor, and if you have a question, please just type in Q in the group chat, and I will go down that list in the group chat and just allow you to unmute yourself and ask your question. And we will just continue with that until 1:40 when the commissioner has to go. So with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you very much, Lockie, and thank you all for making time to have this conversation. I believe we're at a historic time at the City of Portland, and the historic nature of the City Council's vote today will put us on a trajectory to fundamentally reimagine what community safety looks like. I have so many emotions when it comes to the City Council today. As a 62-year-old Black woman, I can tell you that I have lived experience with police. Not just in Portland, but with police departments and other places that I've lived. I can tell you as a child, watching my dad get dressed up in a Sunday best before we took road trips to ensure that if he was stopped by the cops, he would not look like someone that they would suspect of being a criminal. The reality is that life for Black people in America with policing has always been, from its inception, discriminatory in nature, and Black communities traditionally are overpoliced. Today, we're going to start on a path to reimagining what community safety looks like and making sure that when we talk about what role police officers play, that they do not have an outsized role in our community. Today, we have police officers who we expect to address mental health issues. We expect them to be housing experts. We expect them to be social service professionals. That has never been the job intended for police officers, nor should it be. Police have one role in our community, and that is to solve crime and prevent crime. That is it. And what we're going to do starting today is that reimagining of what policing in our community will be. But let me be clear, the budget vote is only the beginning. We have many other changes we must make. For example, we have to redesign how we train police officers, how we recruit them, and what psychologists are determining whether or not someone is fit to wear a uniform that is supposed to protect and serve. In addition to that, we have to do away with the IPR, which is the Independent Police Review. It's never been independent. It's never actually reviewed police misconduct. And quite frankly, the system just needs to disappear. We need to replace it with a truly independent community process that holds police accountable for inappropriate behavior. That process needs to have subpoena power and have the resources to investigate police misconduct. Our vote today will set us on a path to totally reimagine how we keep our community safe and how we stop using jails as a place for people who are houseless and for people who are suffering from mental health issues. I am thrilled and honored that 64,000 Oregonians have written in to our office demanding, not requesting, but demanding that we transform policing in our community. We've heard loud and clear with tens thousand or more people every night for over 2 weeks on our street that we can no longer afford business as usual. I will tell you that the proposals that I am submitting today, the amendments to the budget, cut police funding by approximately $15,600,000. And my plan is that most of that money, 10 million and 10.6 million, will be reinvested in programs that support the community. I'm going to ask Kristen Johnson to walk through my list of proposals so that you can follow along. Because I'm sure if I just told you what it was, you would be saying, wait, slow down. So Kristen, if you'll be kind enough to share your screen. And so what you will see from this screen is we'll start off at the top with what we are cutting out of the Portland Police Bureau budget. We will be, my amendments say that we will cut the gun violence reduction team and the Metro Gang Task Force. There are 38 officers, 38 FTEs that are assigned right now, and that will reduce the Police Bureau's budget by 5.6 million. We're going to eliminate the 8 CERT positions that were requested in this new budget. That provides another $1.1 million in savings. We're going to end the IGA for the transit division, and that is another $4.3 million. We're going to remove all cannabis tax dollars from the police budget. This has been a pet peeve of mine long before I showed up at City Hall, that the people who created the over-policing of Black and brown communities were then beneficiaries of tax dollars now that white people, now that cannabis is legal, and white people are making small fortunes on cannabis in our community. And so that was one that's been a pet peeve for quite some time. And as you know, the mayor's already announced we will cut the school resource officer program, which is another $2.1 million. That translates to 107 positions. Currently, 55 of those positions are vacant, and so so it will lead to layoffs, no doubt about that. Now, let me talk about the reinvestments. We will be investing in more dollars for the Portland Street Response, which is a 2-person team that has a EMS and a qualified mental health professional teamed up to answer 911 calls where there is no violence associated with the call, and where we know that many of our 911 calls are for unwanted people and for people who are houseless and camped in our community. So where are we going to invest the rest of the dollars? We're going to make sure that the cannabis tax dollars are going to be reinvested out in the community to undo the harm that previous policy around marijuana has created. We're going to make sure that we're invested in making right the wrongs that we have placed on community members, especially our Black and brown community members. We're going to invest additional dollars in the Tribal Liaison Office because we know all the social determinants of health tell us that Native Americans and African Americans are at the bottom of every determinant. We're going to also invest more money in the Office of Equity and Human Rights because we are asking the Office of Equity and Human Rights to hold our bureaus accountable for the equity goals that each bureau at the City of Portland has. In addition, this is one thing that I'm really proud of. We're going to invest in a Black Youth Leadership Development Fund that will be controlled by Black youth, not the people who say they represent them. We will train them in a variety of areas before we allow them to have access to those resources. And I'm currently in conversations with foundations who have agreed to help us match these dollars so that we will have a bigger pot of money to invest in young Black leadership. We're also putting aside money for a participatory budgeting process with our houseless community members. We know that even with the passing bond measures to build housing that people can afford to live in, we will not be able to build housing fast enough so that everyone has a safe place to lay their head at night. So we will need to work with our houseless community to find alternatives to permanent affordable housing in the meantime until we have built enough units so that no one is living on our street. I'm very excited about that. And we're going to return $3.1 million back to the general fund so that those dollars could be used as reinvestment in other community initiatives. I am excited about this proposal. I am cautiously optimistic that my colleagues will support these amendments that I will present this afternoon. And I am happy now to stop and answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you.
Okay, so now we will just open it up for questions. And as I mentioned before, we unfortunately don't have the raise hand function. So if you have a question, just put Q in the chat box and I will go down the list and I will announce who. We'll just kind of go down the list that way. So the first one is from Everton Bailey. So Everton, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Lockie. Hi, Commissioner Hardesty.
Good afternoon.
Have you had a chance to talk to Chief Lavelle about any of your proposed amendments, including cutting more than 100 positions? And has he had any specific thoughts about any of the specific amendments that you're hoping to pursue?
I have had the privilege of talking with our new police chief. He is committed to transformation of the police bureau. No police chief would agree to cuts. He would rather I not cut anything. But the reality is that we need to make these cuts. These cuts are necessary. And I am confident that even with these cuts, we will have a sufficient number of police officers to respond to crime and to prevent crime in our community.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. The next question is from Simon from KPTV.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thanks for doing this. A lot of people in the public hearing yesterday and protests have thrown out the number $50 million, and that's what they want to see cut from the police budget. Your number is much lower. Do you support eventually getting to that $50 million mark?
Well, I think what we need is some analysis, right? I'm not sure that 50 million is based on facts. I think it was just something, if I was an advocate outside, I would be given a big number as well. I will say that this is not the last time we will be looking at the police budget. We will be working very closely with the police bureau for them to reassess where they put their resources. You know, I never started with a number in mind. What I started with was, what are the programs that I already know have racially disparate outcomes? And those were the programs that I was committed to cutting. I am absolutely willing to look more about other ways to reduce the need of police services. And quite frankly, it is my belief that once the Portland Street response is up and fully running, we will find that that is a better alternative to sending people with weapons to address people with mental health issues and people who are sleeping in doorways.
Thank you. All right, and the next question is with Lachey Wesley at K2.
Commissioner. Commissioner, we have heard from other cities saying that they're no longer going to be negotiating with police unions over the contract. Is that something that you would be willing to do and willing to advocate for in the future?
Let me just say that because our contract talks are open now, I am not in a position to say anything about the current police contract. But I would say stay tuned.
Thanks, Lachey. Next question here, Pat Doris with KGW.
Commissioner, a year ago, you tried to eliminate the gun violence reduction team and were soundly voted down at City Council. I wonder if you could just talk about what this moment is like and how much things have changed.
Nothing's like having 15,000 young people take to the street for over 2 weeks, demanding the exact same things that I tried to get changed in last year's budget. I even had those proposals prepared for this year's budget. But everything depends on being able to get 3 votes. And so I am heartened now that my colleagues have heard from the same people I've heard from. They listened to 5 hours of testimony yesterday. People were really clear and specific about the changes they wanted to see. And I am feeling cautiously optimistic that my colleagues now understand what I've been trying to tell them for years, is that it is inappropriate for us to be funding organizations that racially target specific communities for over-policing. And let me just say, Pat, that I am giddy that I'm not the only one on the city council who now sees that the gun violence reduction team should not exist. So I think what a way we've come, not just in 2 years, but quite frankly, just in 1 month. In May, when we had our initial budget conversation, I could not get 2 votes to eliminate the gun violence reduction team. And so as a political compromise, I worked with the mayor to get the mayor to agree that he and I would review all the specialty units within Portland Police Bureau and bring a proposal back in February. The mayor and I will still do that, but now at least 3 of the units that I would have been reviewing will no longer exist. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
All right, thanks, Pat. The next question we have is from Lisa Balick from COIN.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
Question for you. You have obviously great support for the gun violence reduction team and the transit police and the school resource officer programs to go away. Have you counted heads yet, so to speak, on getting rid of CERT?
I heard loud and clear, both from the 63,000 emails that we got in and the testimony yesterday, that what the community wants is not an over-militarized police force, but a police force that excels in de-escalation. I don't believe CERT fits the description of a police force that is focused on de-escalation and reducing violent interactions between community members and people who are sworn to protect and serve.
Commissioner, do you have the votes on council for that to go away?
We will both see that at the same time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lisa. Next question is from Mila from KGW.
Hi, Commissioner. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
I am just wondering, on your side of things, now that you're a commissioner yourself, would you like to see Portland completely do away with its police bureau in the future?
Well, let me just say that I don't believe abolition is the solution to the problems we currently have in policing. I think the big problem that we have is that we hire people to police our communities, and then we train them as if they're going into military action. I have done training at the Department of Public Safety Standard and Practice, In fact, I developed a training program that matched community member with a police officer to do the training. It is my belief that we will never have community police officers until we have community members and police partnered to provide that training. And so what my vision for both DPSST and for the Portland Police Training Facility is that we will never do training again that doesn't match a community member with a police officer, with the exception of training having to do with tactical maneuvering and weapons training. But other than that, there's absolutely no reason why we don't have community members setting the expectation for community police officers long before they hit the street.
All right, thank you, Mila. Next question is from Nigel from Willamette Week.
Hi, Nigel. Unmute. There you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thanks for taking the time. Two-part question. The slide that you showed from Kristen's spreadsheet shows the loss of 107 FTE from the Police Bureau. We know that they've had kind of a game where they have had a lot of FTE that they didn't fill. So could you tell us how many actual layoffs or how many bodies you think that will actually mean will be departing the Bureau?
Yes, I can tell you that currently there are 55 vacancies.
Okay.
And so those vacancies, as well as the positions that are being cut, will equal 107 positions that will no longer be part of the Portland Police Bureau.
So if I'm doing the math right, that means 52 police officers will be leaving the Bureau.
That's correct.
Second question, you're allocating $4.8 million to Portland Street Response. Would it be correct to say that's about 40 to 50 FTE, or do you have a number on that?
I do not have a number on that as of yet. As you may remember, I had a pilot that was going to be one van and
Yep.
2 individuals. We had a
Yep.
$500,000 budgeted for that.
Okay.
Now that we're going to do 6, we have 4.8 million budgeted for that. So as of yet, we don't have anybody hired for the Portland Street Response. COVID-19 actually stopped our process on that. But what we're going to do after the budget vote, if my colleagues agree, is to reconvene the committee that helped us develop the Portland Street Response and be very thoughtful about how we roll out these 6 pilots, right? Ultimately, I believe that Portland Street Response, the community will want it to be permanent, and then we can start thinking about how we move resources to support what the community wants when it comes to community safety.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nigel. So just doing a quick time check, we have about 3 to 4 more minutes. We've got 2 more follow-up questions, and I wanted to make sure those who haven't had a chance to ask a question. Also, if you want to ask a question, to just put that as in the chat box as well. But we will go to Simon from KPTV for a follow-up.
Commissioner, thank you. If you had to address rank and file police officers directly, what would you say to them in terms of their value to the city, in your eyes at least?
What I would say is I suspect that rank and file police officers are feeling pretty demoralized right now. And what I would say to them is we want them to be part of the solution. Again, I believe that we need police officers, but we need a different kind of police officer. And we need police officers that are willing to be partners with the community. And I know that we have some excellent police officers. For example, our domestic violence unit are second to none. Those officers have worked very hard to build deep relationships, both with domestic violence victims, as well as with the service providers that they work with to help domestic violence victims get support, right? So I would never say that we should just get rid of all of them and start over. I would say to them, if you are committed to community policing, if you are committed to a different way of policing our community, then we want you to be part of the solution. but we will no longer allow police to tell us where crime is happening, who's committing the crime, and we will no longer allow them to actually frame crime as an issue of Black and brown people versus the crime that's just happening all across the city. So I would tell them, get on board. Change is coming. It's here. And if you want to be a part of a revolutionized policing force, then you're in the right place. And if you don't, retirement is a good option.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. All right, we have time for about 1 to 2 more questions. We'll try to get through these as quickly as possible. Everton, you have a follow-up question?
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks again for taking my question. At this point, what does success or forward momentum look like to you in the short term? I mean, more specifically, what specific city actions would you like to see accomplished by the end of July or August?
I think within July, between now and August, my expectation will be that the mayor and I would have gone through a thorough review of the other specialty units within Portland Police Bureau. And we will work with the new police chief to figure out what's the priority for the community, not what's the priority for the police bureau. And we will make sure that the units, that those specialty units actually are doing the job that they're intended to do. In addition, we will start the process of redesigning how training happens at the Portland Police Training Facility. I'm hopeful that by then we would have had a special session and we would have had our arbitration bill passed at the legislative session. And so it is what I hope that happens. The vote is just step one, but we have the momentum now to do the institutional change that is absolutely required to create a more humane police force. And so those are just some of the things right off the top.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Everton. We are at 1:41. So if there are any other follow-up questions, please send them over to the Hardesty Media at portlandoregon.gov email address, and I will be sure to get those answered for you. I do apologize that it looks like we have a few follow-up questions that we're just unable to get to. The commissioner has to prepare for council. So like I said, Hardesty Media at portlandoregon.gov if you have any follow-up questions. And just as a reminder, the commissioner will be putting out a statement following the budget vote, and inquiries about the results of the budget vote will be referred to that statement. And the office tomorrow will be on a furlough day. So just.
Yes, I will be sleeping all day tomorrow because I haven't had much sleep in the last 2 weeks. And I just want to thank you all for joining this call. And I'm sure you will be on pins and needles like I will be, waiting to see how this vote turns out. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.